Week 2 of the Six Nations did not disappoint, as there always is with the Six Nations. Twists and turns everywhere, title permutations down the bottom, and some stuff we didn't expect in the middle as well. So welcome back to the channel. It's Monday after week 2. We're now into a rest week, so I'm reviewing what we saw at the weekend, going through England, France, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales mainly, and just some of the big talking points, I think, for those nations off the back of what we saw. Brief mention of Italy as well, but that's kind of the main focus. So comment section, that's where you can head. Let me know whether you're English, French, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Italian, or even if you're not, but you just have thoughts on any of those other teams, you can let me know. I'm going to start off with England. That was the big shock of the weekend, wasn't it? Their victory against France. They rode their luck, but credit to them. They haven't been able to see games out. They were able to, and they had to come back into it on a couple of occasions in a lot of pressure, really. I guess the question now for England is, have they turned a corner? It's not something that I wanted to speak about too much on Saturday after the result and the video I did at Twickenham, because given all the criticism the team has faced, I don't want to immediately then be saying, well, you've got to back it up and demanding more from them. Like on Saturday, it was about credit to them, the performance, you know, Finn Smith, Tom Curry, so many of those players had outstanding performances. They got the victory that their fans had been waiting for. But my question now on a Monday is, have they turned a corner? Because you do need to back it up, ultimately. You know, they've got Scotland coming to Twickenham next. They haven't won the Calcutta Cup for 4 years. They have to win that game because it backs up what we saw against France. It suggests that this isn't a team that can simply produce a great result every now and again. It's a team that can produce it week after week, that have learned from their mistakes, that all those frustrations and disappointments from the New Zealand tour last year, the poor results in November where they were close but not quite able to get over the line, it shows that they have learnt from those. So that is my hope for this England team. And I suppose in terms of selection now, is it Finn Smith's team going forward in terms of him at fly half? I don't agree with people that have said Marcus Smith didn't play well. I thought Marcus Smith did play well. It wasn't a perfect performance. We know he's not naturally a fullback, but I still think he actually brings a lot of value to the team in that area. So I think the fullback fly half combination could work well. When George Furbank is back in the team, he probably comes back in at fullback, but I think Marcus Smith as your bench option of covering 10 and covering fullback is a pretty good one. And naturally, I think if he does get more game time at fullback, we could see him start to really have a positive impact from that position more regularly, because we know how good he is with ball in hand. I guess the only question mark really over Marcus Smith in terms of fullback is the length of his kicking. But we'll see. For England, hugely positive weekend. I was delighted for them after all the criticism that they faced. A lot of that criticism, I think, fair for what we saw in November. But it was just a release of emotion from the crowd, from the players at that full-time whistle. Have they turned a corner? That is the big question that I think they have to answer. Let's get on to France, though, because they are the other side of this. I mean, I said on Saturday that they would be absolutely gutted about the way in which they lost that game. Butchered so many opportunities. The one thing that I'm certain about with this French team is we will see a response. But so far, has this golden generation underachieved? This golden generation, this French team, they've got such brilliant players. It is more aligned between the French clubs and the national team than it has ever been. But have they underachieved? During that time, they've got one Six Nations Grand Slam, which was a great Grand Slam, but they went out at the quarterfinal of their own World Cup. Okay, it was to the eventual winners. They lost by only a point. If Cheslin Kolbe doesn't charge down Toma Ramos, it could be a very different story. But those are all kind of ifs, buts and maybes. What we do know is this French team, this golden generation, have one Grand Slam, and they saw their opportunity of another one go begging at the weekend. And I think the question, have they underachieved for how talented they are, is a fair one. What do you reckon? I'm starting to have questions over this French pack, actually, when I'm starting to look at the team. I still look at that back line, and with Dupont, Untermack when he's back, even Jalabert coming on is an excellent player. Maybe the centres you have questions over, but the back three is like as good as any other back three in the world. That forward pack, possibly. Weenie Antonio's tried to retire before and they basically wouldn't let him. Do they have the players coming through? I think they probably do, like the amount of quality players in France. But I would say, looking at the game against England, did they need more from their forward pack at key moments in the game? Whether it be the driving maul or the scrum or just at the breakdown. Food for thought, I suppose. I don't have too many worries about the back line. Although actually, having said that about the back line, I don't think they've ever been as good as when they had Jonathan Donty at 12. Like, Donty at 12 was great going forward as a 12. He was incredibly good over the breakdown defensively as well and getting turnovers. I just wonder whether this team still misses a cog like him, really, in the overall system. But as I say, for me, the big question with France is, has this golden generation underachieved? Let's get on to Ireland. They have had a couple of seriously impressive matches. All right, in the first half against England, they'll probably be pretty disappointed. But the second half against England, the way in which they blew Scotland away, really. I know Scotland got back within a score, but I didn't particularly feel that they were in the game. Ireland were incredibly strong. And there were a lot of question marks over them, weren't there? To me, it feels like they are now improving after November. I thought we saw them dip a little bit in November. They were still pretty good, but it feels like they are improving again. And I think for them, it is going to come down to round 4 against France. Now, France, I still think, are capable of winning that game. But if Ireland were to win another Grand Slam, that is exceptional. A second Grand Slam whilst winning 3 titles in a row. I know we've got 3 games to go, but let's be honest, they will beat Italy and they will beat Wales. It comes down to France. And a lot of those question marks that were there a couple of weeks ago aren't there anymore. And I think actually a lot of that is to do with just they've cleared up areas of their game. Like, they're not dropping as many balls, they're not as sloppy, their attackers looked more slick. I think what they were really good against Scotland was correcting where they weren't as good against England. Like, they weren't on the back foot physically in the way they were in the first half against England. They didn't get as troubled at the breakdown as they did against England. And it's one of the things with this Ireland team, and I think any really good team, but they have been able to problem solve pretty much the whole time of this real great period, haven't they? I suppose you could argue that, the World Cup quarter-final slipped away, and again, another great game that was incredibly tight. But they are a team that are able to solve problems. And I think they've been brilliant so far. Is anyone going to trip them up? Is France going to trip them up? Before the Six Nations, I'd have said yes. Based upon what we've seen the last 2 weeks, probably edging towards no, but I don't know. This is a French team that, going back to my previous point, there will be a response. They will improve. I don't think they will be as bad against anyone else as they were against England. On to Scotland. Scotland fans, has Gregor Townsend taken them as far as he can? There is a tendency to overreact to defeats. And particularly these sorts of defeats where you felt it was championship defining for Scotland in a way. And Townsend could quite easily answer some of those critics if they go to Twickenham, and beat England. If they were able to go away to France on the final weekend and win there, that seems less likely, but you never know. Like, all of a sudden you have answered the critics that are currently now swirling around. But despite that caveat, I think it is a fair question. And I don't necessarily have the answers for it, but you look at this Scotland team and they have underachieved really at the 2 World Cups that he's been in charge of. They've had some great games against England. They had that victory away to France in Paris. I think it was during COVID. So they've had great results. It is a team overall that 100% has improved. Like, you consider how many more Scotland players right now would be in contention for Lions selection than have been in previous Lions tours gone by. Like, they are clearly a better team. He has clearly overall had a really positive impact. But Scotland fans, are you at the point where you look at Townsend and you say, you've done a brilliant job, you've given us some great memories, but are you able to take this team to the next level? It's a really hard question to answer, and it does feel reactionary. But I think based upon the sample size now, which, let's be honest, he's been there a little while, I think it's fair to ask. And it's not because, let me emphasise this is quite an important point, it's not because they lost to Ireland. I think it's the manner of the defeat to Ireland. Didn't really give it a good shot. They've never come above 3rd in the Six Nations. You just feel like they haven't quite been able to get over that next hurdle. Let's get on to Wales then. I mean, for all the questions of any of the other nations, Welsh fans would trade their position in a heartbeat. You wonder where this team is. You wonder where the next win is coming from. And you have pretty grave concerns about what the next 5 years look like for this Welsh team. And naturally, when you're on the when you're on the losing streak that they're on, the question is going to be about the head coach. And people who defend Warren Gatland will say, well, it's not all Gatland's fault. Far from it. This is about systemic issues in the game. It's about the quality of players available to him. It's about the regions and the pathways and the union, and there's so much other stuff. That is, without question, true. Those caveats. It's not all Gatland's fault, but he is the head coach that has overseen this run of defeats. And I don't think you can simply wipe the slate and say, well, it's out of his control. Because if it is entirely out of the coach's control, you might as well get a different coach that isn't on 600 grand a year or whatever Gatland's on. You could find a coach to be paid an awful lot less to get you the same set of results. And I think there are things tactically, selection-wise for Wales at the moment, that you can question. Anscombe and Llewellyn are the big ones in the back line. The tactics of kind of the team, it doesn't look like it is a team that is full of confidence and knows what its plan is and what it's going to do and where its win is coming from. Is Gatland's time therefore up? And it's, again, a bit like the Townsend question. They're different questions, but they're hard questions to answer because we know Warren Gatland is a legend in Wales. What he did in his first stint as head coach was incredible. And all those factors that I mentioned, he has been dealt a really tough set of cards here. I actually remember when he was reappointed following Wayne Pivac and Gatland came back in, I remember saying on a video then, you don't go back, do you? Like, your legacy is so good, as good of a coach you are, you don't go back. And unfortunately, I think that is playing out here. And I do wonder whether Wales need to make a change. Not because a new coach is going to have a drastically different set of results, but you have to be able to change something. You need some sort of fresh slate. We know it isn't going to change lots of the problems in the game in Wales, but right now the guy you have got in, don't know how convinced you are that he has all the answers either. That's probably where my thoughts are with it. Wales fans, let me know. I'll finish off on Italy. Funny one, aren't they? The win is massive for them. Another year where they probably won't get the wooden spoon. I'd imagine Wales will lose all their games now. As an Englishman, I still get nervous about a trip to Cardiff. I just do, but yeah, in terms of two teams, you would back England to win that. So Italy, have they got a win in them there? I mean, away to Twickenham's going to be tough. What was their first game was against Scotland, so they got England, Ireland, France. Might be just the one win. And they're a talented group of players, aren't they? I guess my question really for Italians who will have a better understanding, or Italian rugby fans that have a better understanding of the team than me, is this a team that is improving or has kind of stayed at the same level, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing because they're in a much better place than they were when they were on like a 30-game losing streak in the Six Nations. But do you see them improving at the moment, or are they kind of around a similar place? Let me know. Six Nations delivers though. Every single year the Six Nations deliver. I could start every Six Nations video saying that, to be honest. Let me know your thoughts, drop a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and I will see you in the next one. Appreciate you watching.